be recruitment, retention, promotion, cultural competency are sort of essential themes. And since we had the large meeting with Mayor Cooper, we've decided to change the terminology a little bit and have a chair and a vice chair and not a reporter. The vice chair position would be first to serve as chair in the event that the chair can't make a meeting. And given the number of meetings that we'll have in the next couple months, that will probably be a real responsibility. The vice chair also will be asked to help with keeping track of what's said in the committee. There are other people from the mayor's staff that will be taking notes, but we would like you to be involved in at least keeping track of what requests are for information and what is discussed or agreed upon during committee meetings. And we thought that the best way to approach this is to have anybody who is interested, first we'll do 2 votes, one for chair, one for vice chair. Anybody who is interested in serving as chair to let the group know, and also for vice chair. And then we'll do a roll call vote. And what we did last week with the policy committee, if someone decides they want to pursue that position, or if someone's nominated and they accept the nomination, give them a couple minutes to say whatever they want to say about their interest in filling that role. So I guess I would start by, and then at the end of this process, when we have this election, you'll have a chair and a vice chair, and I will turn the meeting over to that person. So I have an enviable job. It will be over shortly. So let me start by asking anyone who is interested in being the chair to let us know now.
Mayor, this is Margie Quinn, and I'm interested in being the chair.
Okay, thank you, Margie. Is there any other interest or nominations? Going once, going twice. Margie, congratulations. And now for the vice chair position.
Mayor, could I say just one word about why I wanted to be the chair?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. I should have asked you to do that.
Yeah, no, that's okay. For those of you who might not remember, I'm the CEO at End Slavery Tennessee, which is a direct service nonprofit for victims of human trafficking throughout Middle Tennessee. We do training, advocacy, aftercare, and prevention. We serve about 300 men, women, and children each year throughout Middle Tennessee, the majority of which come from Nashville. I'm also a retired law enforcement. I spent 26 years in law enforcement, both as a patrol officer for the Cobb County Police Department in Metro Atlanta, and then 21 years with the TBI. So I have a pretty good amount of lived experience as a minority in law enforcement. I understand what it's like to be the only minority at the table for years. And so this was a particular issue, this workforce issue, that I felt just really strongly about. I think it's very important that we move the needle on this issue. I think it will have a trickle-down effect on some of the other work that's going on by this commission. And I am excited to work with all of you. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for agreeing to do this. Vice Chair, is there any interest in that position?
This is Gary Moore, Mayor.
Yep. Hey, Gary.
Hi. I'm not interested, but I'm from my old school where you nominate somebody when they're not there to decline it. So I think Ann Davis would make a good one.
Ann Davis?
Yes, sir.
Well, she's not on the commission.
Oh, I thought you said she was. I'm
sorry.
No,
her name appears because I'm using her computer.
Oh, okay.
I would.
Whitney?
Yes, Whitney Washington.
Okay. And do you want to say anything about why you're interested in the position or anything at all at this point?
Yeah, I'm interested in helping out Margie and making sure that when our recommendations are put forth, that they're put forth in a really clear manner and offer, any sort of expertise or even pushback or clarity that I can help with others.
Good. Well, thank you. Is there any other interest in the position? Going once, going twice. Whitney, congratulations. We have Margie and Whitney as chair and vice chair. Very good. And so now at this point, Margie, you have the agenda.
I do, yes, sir.
All right. And I think essentially, and Eric, I don't know if you want to weigh in at this point, but there'll be a discussion of the committee process and talk about the committee's charge. I've already told you what is listed as essential themes that we would expect the committee to look at: recruitment, retention, promotion, and cultural competency. But there may be other things. And Margie, I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Madam Chair, you're on mute.
You're on mute, yeah.
Okay. Eric, I'd love to hear what the mayor's office has in mind when they talk about process.
Absolutely. So if everybody has the materials in front of you, I can go ahead and go through the agenda of what we're talking about today, and as far as activities as well as today. So of course for week one, and what I want to do first is, if it helps everybody, I'm going to just start with what we're talking about today as far as themes or whatnot. And I think we want to kind of go this route, more just to talk, because this will probably be a maybe somewhat different meeting from what we had with the policy committee. So if you do have your memorandum out in front of you, we'll of course go through some of the themes that have came out from this. I think what's very interesting about the workforce committee is that workforce will have more of a cultural piece within talking about use of force, to just talk about what that culture looks like and to represent that. So if we go through things, we can talk about use of force, police department culture, diversity training, transparency, collaboration. And one of the main focuses that I believe India is not on here with us to discuss or talk about, because she is with the communities meeting, is that she definitely wants to make sure that this is evidence-based with what we're talking about. But also the two pieces that come in mind is first data, discussing some of the information that we already do have, not only from MNPD, but also us as well, as far as the mayor's office, to be able to make sure that we have pieces that we can also help and assist in with that. Another piece, which will probably be a big piece within all of these committees, will be the subject matter experts within this process. So just for today, some pieces that we want to make sure that we're discussing and talking about is, one, that we get to hear from everybody some of their reasons of why they're on, why they're part of this commission, also some of their background today, and two, to also talk about what is some of the things that you would like to make sure that you get information from, regardless if that's a specific topic that you would like to have, or also if you'd like to make sure that there's subject matter experts that are a part of this as well. I'll end there just to make sure we have questions first before I continue. Okay, so with that, of course, today, we've already did our selection with the chairs and the vice chair. Talking about, which is where I'm in, is just the committee process of making sure that we have information on both sides. I think the pieces that come out of here the most that we definitely want for today, at least, is, excuse me, again, making sure that we understand the themes and the categories that come out of this As far as the process, I think most of our time, again, will be playing with at least the first 4 meetings of us making sure that we understand national recommendations, any other different additional recommendations that we might need, as well as any other data or factors that we might need through the first part. And then after that, I think it'll be, of course, on the committee itself, discussing what those recommendations will look like for you, and that will be in 3 parts. The first part is, 1, what are some things or some solutions that can get done right away or quickly? So that will be something that this group will be talking about as far as retention, recruitment, and so on and so forth. 2, that second piece of that will be, what are some things that the chief of police can do within his or her first 18 months within office? And the third part of that will be recommendations for what that should look like going forward after that. So I think that if that's helpful, that will be some of the 3 processes of what we're going to talk about within this process. And again, if there's any questions, I can answer those right now.
It's Gary Moore. Can we go ahead and request information from you? Is it appropriate to do that now?
Absolutely. So what I will do is I'll hand it back to Madam Chair so that she can go through the rest of the process. And within that, one piece that I do know, unless she would like to change it, is when people start saying their names and start saying some of the stuff that they would like to have within there, that will be a piece that will be a part of that, if that's fine with you, Gary.
Yes, that's fine.
And with that said, I'm giving it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Eric. I'm writing some notes as well, but I would love to just go through the committee and hear from each of you, and maybe why you maybe wanted to be on this committee, if you selected this committee, what you hope to get out of it, and any questions or information that you feel like you want to ask for kind of right off the bat. And I will just kind of go down the alphabetical order if that's okay. Beth Courtney.
Hi, everyone, and I'm looking forward to working with each and every one of you. I guess a couple of thoughts that came to mind when we were going through that earlier discussion. I think first and foremost that there's a clear and established sort of sense of what this committee is going to try to accomplish and what our goals are, so that we can, sort of stay focused in terms, is it, making recommendations and changing or helping, with the retention? Is it that that we need to look at, who the current force is and how we might shift the, sort of the demographics related to that. So I don't know whether there's been anything articulated in that regard, but I think that would be helpful. In terms of why I want to be involved, I'm a longstanding Nashvilleian. I would say that I have a lot of respect for the police force. I went through Leadership Nashville, and we went through some very, specific training in terms of what it really requires to be out there. But at the same time, there are some really clear community voids that are being expressed that I think we all need to focus on and understand, and hopefully get to some of the root causes of some of the miscommunication. And my background is in communication, so I guess what I hope I can bring to the table is helping to, once we kind of reach consensus on some of the places this can go, express it in a way that we build trust in the community. And I think if we can build, more appreciation and trust, it would be a very positive step in the right direction.
Thank you, Beth. Next would be Clifton Harris.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I am also delighted and honored to be on this committee, and I look forward to working with everyone. I wanted to be on this committee because I wanted to make sure that when it comes to recruitment and retention, that we also have a very diverse police force that looks like the community that is served. And also, having had the pleasure of serving 2 mayors, and former Mayor Dean, one of them, I had a firsthand view of how the police department interacted with special need populations, homeless and mentally ill. And so I want to make sure and know that, we are have in place a mechanism that helps recruit and retain the right individuals that have the aptitude for serving people with special needs. So I'm glad to be here and look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Mr. Talbot?
Did you say Mr. Talbert?
Yes, sir.
I'm actually on the policy committee. I missed my first meeting as I was traveling, so I was just listening in to get a flavor unless Mr. Brown has an update and I'm in the right place as of now, since I missed that meeting. Otherwise, I was just listening and learning. You're on mute.
This is I have you listed as being on the workforce committee.
Okay, here I am then.
You're in the right place. And while we're here, I should have said this at the beginning. I think you've been told this before, but all these meetings are either being streamed live. I don't think this one is tonight because there's 2 meetings going on, but it is being taped and it will be made available to the public probably some point early tomorrow. So just so you know that, I wanted you to know that.
Great, thank you. So why I'm here, I guess, in brief, is I've had a bit of experience with 30 years in municipal government of hiring and luckily not terminating 3 police chiefs. So I know a little bit about law enforcement, and I was also on the paid professional side, so I dealt with employee retention issues, attraction, as well as the risk elements of it as it related to legal defense and things of that nature. So I have a bit of police background. I'm really here to help us stay focused on evidence-based decision-making. In our first round of discussions, I felt somewhat like we were shoot first, aim second, no disrespect intended, but I just want to make sure that we understand where we're at today in terms of what is the compilation of the department? Does it mirror the community or not? What percentage differences do we have? Are they operating within given norms? If not, where are they failing? How do we fix it? So I guess I'm looking for the one that's the voice of letting the data guide us in the direction where the problem is so we can take care of the biggest problems first. And clearly, we're a department without perfection. I think most departments are, but we have a finite amount of time and resources. So to the degree we can take out the big ones first, I think that's what's important to me.
Margie, did you call me David Fox?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Pleased to be on the committee. My interest in this issue pretty much crystallized 5 years ago when I was running for mayor. And for months, I witnessed firsthand from conversations an inadequate level of trust between various populations in our community and the police force. And it was especially pronounced among African Americans. It was a recurring theme. It was a front and center issue, and one that clearly needed to be addressed 5 years ago. For whatever reason, that hasn't happened. I'm very encouraged that Mayor Cooper has recognized this as something that needs some intentional effort, because the little I know about law enforcement, it's not terribly effective if you don't have buy-in and trust from the communities you're policing. So I'm delighted to be on this task force. I believe the cultural piece is very important. The staffing, who the public sees out in the community is extremely important. So I think this is important work. I'm happy to do what I can to contribute to it. And back to Eric's point about requesting data, it's probably premature. A starting point for me and most of us, I guess, will be just the data that shows current staffing. Current staffing by the relevant demographics, the rank, so we can get a sense for what the baseline is right now. So thank you, Margie. Thank you for taking leadership. And Whitney, thank you for being vice chair.
Thank you. Eric Brown? Eric Brown?
Yes.
Yes, sorry. Your mayor's office.
Yes.
Do you have anything you wanted to say?
The only other thing that I will add, as far as there also was a public link that went out on Twitter, so there might be some people that are listening as viewers as well, so they can see us in live time.
Thank you. Mac Huffington?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I couldn't get unmuted earlier. Hello, I am Mac Covington. At this point, I am representing not just myself, but I'm on the National Pride Board. I'm on the LGBT Chamber Board. I'm on the Black Pride Board. And so this, for me to be able to be a part of the committee is definitely an honor and very exciting. I'm definitely very interested in the recruitment, our retainment, and the cultural piece. I want to say a lot of what Daryl Talbert said is definitely a point that I agree with. I also agree we need a lot more information to be able to, move forward on the things that sounds like we need to be working on. But I'm very interested in trying to get the recruitment. I'm also a part of the police diversity training. So having a little background in that will definitely, I feel like, help me give some input on this, because we found a lot of things during the training that may help in later recruitment and retention. So thank you.
Mr. Ponder?
Very much. And Margie and Whitney, congratulations, and thank you for your leadership on this committee. I wanted to be on this particular committee after I looked at the three choices, and it's because recruitment, retention, and promotion are actually the building blocks of a foundation of a strong organization. So I felt that this was one of the very important committees. I have had connection with the police for quite a few years. When I was in council, which was from 95 to 2003, frequently I was involved with the police at different projects that they were doing. I was very involved in the establishment of the precinct in Hermitage, and have maintained a close relationship with each commander since the original commander. So I have much appreciation for the department, know that there's challenges that it can be done better, and that's why we're here.
Thank you. Sabina Moyedin?
Hi, thank you. I am the executive director of the American Muslim Advisory Council. And so I work in the Muslim community and just trying to hear, we always talk about having more officers within MNPD so we'd have better outcomes with the, community relations. But the challenges of getting officers, people wanting to go into the MNPD, and the recruitment, but the retention and the issues that are being seen there. And do they see this as a career? Are they getting promoted? And, really looking at that culture within MNPD that promotes the diversity. And, when we talk diversity, we have to talk about inclusion. And I also work with the Mobile Diversity Seminar with the Cadet Cultural Competency Training, and that is woefully it's simply not enough, because we're training cadets and really want to look at what kind of training we need as ongoing training for police, sergeants, and commanders, along the line. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's jump back up and go to Demetria. Demetria, are you on?
It might be best if, Dimitri, it might be best if you log back off and log back in. I think we can see you, but we can't hear you. So I'm not sure what's going on. If not, we might be able to have Brandon might be able to help out with that.
Dimitri, you're unmuted. You should be able to speak.
Brandon's unable that you might be able to help her with that. Madam Chair, is it possible we can go to somebody else until we figure out what's going on?
Sure. Whitney, let's hear from you.
Thank you. Hi, Whitney Washington. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm on this. I've worked with various social justice and racial justice and economic justice organizations, both internationally and locally. And I am really committed to uplifting work that's already been done in this area, especially in regards to the community's relationship with the police, like the Driving While Black report, and also all the work that the Community Oversight Board has been doing. And I'm really excited because I think that we have the opportunity to lead boldly and follow the will of so many great leaders that we have in our city already thinking about this. You know, I think especially the other committees, I think it's really critical and necessary to think systemically, but this is definitely examining the individuals that make up the police force, and that is so important right now. I think so many people will tell you that it's just not working the way that policing is being done right now. And you know, the phrase a few bad apples is that it ruins the whole bunch. And I think that we should, you know, really identify the health of all the apples. And so I'm looking forward to working on this. Is this where we're sharing like what we would, like any resources we'd like? Okay. I was wondering, how do we communicate and share information like outside of the calls? Or is that expected? Just like email, if like I come across like an article about like something really interesting, should I just like share it in email?
I was thinking email is a great idea. I mean, I'm sure Marjorie's supposed to answer that, but I was just chiming in.
And then I believe it's available, but on the website, just the general MNPD like employee manual. But if there's any other outlined policies and manuals, especially regarding personnel, I would definitely love to see that. And then any data on recent and historic disciplinary measures and promotions, I think would be really helpful right now. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
As point of process, I made a fairly significant public document request of staff earlier today.
Okay.
I don't know if that was inside, outside, the format for requesting information hasn't been established yet, but I would ask Eric, if you can, if those documents are or will be produced, if you can return them to me as well as everybody on this committee so that we all have parallel information.
Darryl, if you don't also mind, I don't know if your time has went by, it would be good for you to also say those out loud as well. But yeah, that information will get publicized, but I would love for you to say that out loud because that was a great load of information I think would be good to this group.
Tonight, President Trump claimed Biden and the rioters were working together.
Madam Chair, this is Phil. Could I ask a question of Eric, please?
Like a radical socialist, a soft spot for Ryder? Really?
Asked tonight if he thought that his trip to Wisconsin tomorrow could increase tensions President Trump said he believes it could actually increase enthusiasm and respect for the country.
I'm not sure if everybody's on mute, but if we can get everybody on mute, please.
It is a tolerate. Thank you. Let's go now to Kenosha, Wisconsin, because the county sheriff says more than 200 arrests have been made.
Eric, do you have the ability to mute the whole panel?
Brandon, can you mute Mac, please?
I'm sorry, I thought I was muted. I apologize.
This is Gary Moore. I'm still on, and I have not heard my name called. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I think we've got Mr. Ponder, if you can hang on just a second with your question for Mr. Talbot. Mr. Moore, go ahead and speak and let us know how you're feeling about this committee and what you'd like to get out of it.
Well, obviously, the first thing I'd like to do is see a resolve of the obvious problem we have with the police department and the community as a whole, I might add. It's not, I think it's a two-way street. I don't think we have a problem with just the police. We have a problem within some of our communities. A little bit about myself. I served 32 years at the Nashville Fire Department. I've also served as a court officer. I've served as president of the Nashville Firefighters, Tennessee Professional Firefighters, and also president of Tennessee AFL-CIO. So I have a labor background. In addition, I served 8 years in the State House. So I have a wide range of knowledge that I think I can use to help this committee. And my goal is obviously the same as all of your goals, is that we make some revisions that are beneficial to the citizens of Nashville and make the police department a greater police department.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Did we ever get Demetria on the line?
Demetria, you're unmuted.
Okay, we'll come back. Mr. Ponder, did you have a question for Mr. Talbot?
Well, I have a question about we're going to be looking at recruitment, retention, and promotion. Are there any national guidelines that are printed that we could have to share with the committee?
Sir, was that for me?
Yes.
We can definitely make sure to contribute a lot of that stuff to you as well. Anything that is asked of us, we will make sure to provide that with the committee.
Okay, I think that would be a really great starting point if we do have. I mean, it may not be totally something that would be applicable for us, but at least it's a starting point if there is some kind of a national recommendation. The other thing is to recommend at some point when you're inviting people to come to participate with us would be the individual who's in charge of training for the police department, so we can get an update on what's happening currently in the training program and what needs to be improved there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Talbot, were you going to tell us what documents you had already requested?
I was about to make Eric very mad at me. My assistant didn't print that. She printed everything else out for me today except for that. Do you by chance have it on your system, Eric?
Yeah, yes, I do. Let me grab it real quick, and I'll email it right back to you.
Madam Chair, this is Reggie Miller. Did I miss my name, or did it not get called?
I don't have you in yet, but while we're waiting, please, Reggie, go ahead.
Okay. First, let me say congratulations, Madam Chair. I'm Reggie Miller. I've done almost 28 years on Metro Police Department. 17 of those years was in a specialized investigative unit, and the last 4 years was with the FBI Violent Crime Gang Task Force. I am currently the president of the national chapter of the National Black Police Association, which I've served on the local level, the regional level, and also as the national chairperson as well. being in this position, it has allowed me a lot of great opportunities. What has happened is that it allows us to be able to meet with the chiefs of police on a monthly basis. So I met with Chief Turner, Chief Surpass, Chief Anderson, all with monthly meetings. Those meetings were to address issues that adversely affect our communities, affect the police departments, recommendations as far as recruitment, retention, diversity, the whole works. I would like to say, definitely with one of the chiefs, Chief Surpass, he actually allowed the recruitment division to make an effort to recruit minorities. And with that, there was a minority sergeant that was over that particular class. And with that, they brought about the largest minority class that Metro Police Department had over all these years. And shortly after that, a deputy chief actually disbanded that particular unit and moved out those minorities. And looking at the numbers, the next 10 classes combined didn't equal to the one class that they done. Now, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because some things have to be intentional, and it also has to start from the top. And because the chief of police said that that's what he wanted to happen, then it happened. So going into this recruitment, well, first of all, I would also like that particular sergeant to be listed as a subject matter expert, and I'm going to give her name, Sergeant Marita Granberry. I would like to have her as a subject matter expert to come in and talk about why she was successful in being able to complete that task. We're still fortunate enough that as far as training is concerned, we have Sergeant Bob Allen, and he's on one of the committees, but Bob Allen is probably one of the best trainers in the state. And so we're very fortunate to have him as well. And he's testified in federal court on a bunch of diversity and, a bunch of those issues. I think that one of our goals has to be that the police department and the community are disconnected. It's obvious that not just here in Nashville, but around the world. So I think it's going to be very important that the new chief shows that we have transparency. The community, from everything, all the leaders that I talk to in the communities, they're looking for transparency, and to them that means just disciplinary records should be made available when officers are charged with a misconduct. And the accountability part has to have accountability as well, to make sure that the misconduct is, and they're held accountable. The chief of police, I think, should be held accountable for the discipline of the officers. And a lot of it, has come through a lot of nepotism and cronyism, and a lot of the discipline doesn't get, it's not distributed fairly. We do have the availability of the OPA, which is the Office of Professional Accountability, and I think if we are able to pull cases, you will definitely see, probably be surprised, and some maybe not, but at the disproportionate the way that officers are being charged depending on what color they are. Fortunately, we should be able to pull those records. I think that if we do set a standard, the public and the community will support us. And like I said, we're in a very fortunate position right now with these committees to be able to change that culture that we've been talking about. The culture really is not really good. I mean, if reality is, the culture has not been good. You have too many, like we have like 18 flex units, and there's about 5 guys to a flex unit. And we had 18 of them, and there was only one male black out of 18 flex units at one time on those flex units. We've had things like that. The representation rate for the minorities, and I'm going to say male blacks, female blacks, I'm going to use that for an example. We've never been over 10%. Well, I'm not going to say never. We've been anywhere from 10 to 13% as far as representation on the police department. We've had classes where there's been 60 people to a class and no minorities in a class. We've had 30 promotions and there were no minorities promoted. These are things that are realistic. This is not anything that can't be shown, can't be proven. And it's very tough and very hard for minority officers to go out and recruit other minority officers, other people interested when they're not being promoted, they're not being treated fair, and those type of things. I'm not going to get into a lot of the detail, but I'm just bringing these things out to let you know that there is a problem, and there is a lot of issues, and we have tried to address these issues with every chief that we have monthly meetings with. We come up with recommendations all the time on how we can better the department, how we can look more reflective in the community, and how that will make the community support us. You don't want all of one color of police officers coming into one neighborhood. People want to see people that look like them, and they're more supportive when that happens. But however, this whole thing of not recruiting minorities, saying that, well, we can't find any qualified applicants, is really a bunch of bull. The reason why I'm saying all of this is to say that I don't know where we are. Whatever the numbers are, we can start from there. We don't need these numbers to be camouflaged. We don't need them to be covered up, because we're going to make a difference. We're going to make a change. And the only way we're going to know that progress is to see where we start from and then where we actually end up. So I'm hoping that we don't get any numbers that's inflated to make something look good, because that's really not the case. So I want to make sure that in this whole process, because I've been around, I've seen it, and I've gone through several different chiefs. Some of them have been very supportive in making an effort to change it. But I am saying that it does start at the top. So whoever this police chief is, this police chief can change things immediately. They can change the culture immediately. This won't have to take 18 months. It can happen right away. And then, like I said, and so as far as hiring and promotions, it's kind of been that same thing. You know, like I said, promotions, you might get 1 out of 20. That's not representative of the community. That's not representative of the city. So we have been struggling for years, fighting the same fight, as far as how disciplinary actions have been taken out. For the same, 2 officers do the same thing. One gets a written reprimand, one gets days off. The only difference is their color. We can pull these records, people, and when we do, this is the thing we need to change. And you know, I'm in here to help make a change, and I'm hoping that all of our efforts are not just to say we are on a committee, because this will be the culture of Nashville, Tennessee. And like I said, we have that ability to make that change. And I'm looking forward to seeing some recommendations, some different strategies, some different policies that definitely does need to be implemented in metro government, because, like I said, right now in the police department, for the last couple of years, the atmosphere was not good. It was not good, and so hopefully a new chief will bring in a new spirit, more community based, and we'll be the people who help make that happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Reggie. Mr. Talbert, do you have those questions from Mr. Brown? Unmute.
I do. They're fairly extensive, but I'll go as fast as I can. These are all data-related questions. I asked for calls for service broken down by MNPD zone or precinct for type 3 or part 3 calls ending in arrest or hands-on officer engagement, force or lethal force, and that is a percentage of total. Same for type 2 calls with the same criteria. I asked for post-certification and advanced post-certifications or similar MND-approved training partners. I would like a current snapshot of the MNPD active officers and composite graph indicating those with basic training versus those with advanced training of any kind. I would like the same snapshot with total active officers and those with post-approved mental illness training. I have also asked for post-training overview graph that represents training and the MNPD culture and value of training. From the risk department, city attorney, I have asked for litigation reports, no details, of course, just raw data for total case numbers. The cases should include data showing current or pending litigation and pending officer-involved claims for MNPD for officers' use of force or lethal force over the last 60 months, litigation claims and outcomes and or settlements for MNPD officers related to use of force, litigation and claims, outcomes and or settlements for MNPD officers' use of lethal force or otherwise. Officer discipline, again, these are all just raw numbers because of Police Officers' Bill of Rights and a few other legal hurdles as related to privacy for the officers. So just raw numbers for those who received formal discipline, time off without pay or written reprimand for the last 60 months, for issues related to use of force or lethal force. A snapshot for the number of calls, either fiscal or calendar year, and all data should be consistent that I've requested either fiscal or calendar, however the city's IT team compiles that. Calls resulting in arrest as a percentage of all calls for MNPD, and then a racial breakdown for arrests by period by precinct, a gender breakdown of arrests by period by precinct, age breakdown of arrests by period by precinct in terms of adults or minors, and zone/precinct arrests as a percentage of total calls by precinct and by zone. Use of force statistics, I'm asking for a breakdown of the following for the past 60 months aggregated into a single graph. Weapons versus no weapon arrests, weapons type of arrests, using weapons or less lethal devices used by period by precinct for the last 60 months, including baton, flashlight, taser, or similar, gun, chemical agent, long gun of any type, motor vehicle, canine, or other, and arrest percentages by zone by precinct for physical versus no physical force. I'd also like to get a graph because we're looking at retention as well as attraction on the job. So officer safety and on-job injuries, I'd like a graph, again, just data of officer injury by type that resulted in time off work for the last 60 months. I'd like a graphical illustration of the number of officers separated from MNPD by year for work-related injuries, including mental illness or stress-related issues for the last 60 months. And then I asked for some overall snapshots from both PD as well as the elected staff as it relates to KPIs that were developed for MNPD, KPIs that were developed internally by MNPD, and then if there are any KPIs, key performance indicators that the community or the oversight boards had laid out for MNPD, how are they succeeding with meeting those obligations or goals? And then I explained that that was sort of my first bite at the apple. I'm a bit of a data nerd and probably been at this a long time. So I'm just trying to define perspective, because I've heard a lot even tonight, that it's broken. It's, I want to know how it's broken. Show me the data. Where is it broken? Because with a finite amount of time, if it's broken with the attraction piece and we're not attracting the right officers, okay, we know what that's about, right? Attraction is always about, generally speaking, work environment and money. Same with attraction. Nashville PD has become a training ground, and then they're stolen away to other departments. The good ones obviously have choices, and they're taken because of compensation. So the more we can put data to these impressions or these ideas or these I think, I heard kind of stuff, I think it will help our group come out with some evidence-based decisions that can help us guide. A lot of what I heard today doesn't really relate to attraction and retention. But if we can attract the right kind of chief, we can retain the right kind of officers, we can get enough money together with new taxes or whatever, we will be able to maintain sufficient fund balance to pay all of Nashville employees enough to be retained.
So it must keep jumping off.
My long one, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Demetria, have we gotten you back yet?
I'm hoping. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I got you.
Finally. We get our charge of recruitment, retention, and promotion. I just have some general. What is retention? How many years? What percentage do we offer? Tried student loan forgiveness, mortgage discounts, something that would keep people interested and retained. Are there recruitment bonuses for finding a new officer who stays for 5 years? What are the disqualifiers for a recruit, and how does that compare to other departments? Have we studied the cost of turnover, and is there any research on why people are leaving the department? And then my other it has an obvious answer, but I'm very curious as to whether every police department in the country still works on a partner basis, where someone works with another individual for an extended period of time? Or are they all free agents in their own cars doing their own thing? Thanks.
Thank you. I'm sure Eric's taken some notes. I've also taken some notes. I had a couple of things that I wanted to put on the list as well. With regards to recruitment, I know that one of the questions was, when we have a lateral transfer in, what is done to assure that this officer coming into MNPD is not coming in with a long disciplinary record? So I'd love to know how many police officers we currently have in MNPD that are lateral transfers, and then what the policy is around those and how it may differ from bringing in a new recruit that has no prior enforcement background. When it comes to recruitment, I would like to see what the police department's policy is, what their recruitment unit looks like, as to some of Reggie's points. Do they look like what they're trying to attract? I can tell you that when you look up and you see nobody above you that looks like you, it's difficult to get inspired to hire on with that police department. When it comes to retention, I'd love to know what the salary breakdowns are for police officers years 1 through years 5, what promotion looks like, if those are step increases or percentage increases. I know that police officers, many times work a lot of extra jobs. I know the 5.5 years I spent in patrol, I worked a lot of extra jobs. I did apartment security, and that kind of stuff can wear you out. And so our salaries competitive so that police officers don't have to work 90 hours a week in order to raise a family of 4 in Nashville. And I know that's a tall order these days. I'd like to compare those salaries with major metropolitan police departments. We need to pick probably 6 to 8 in the Southeast and see if Nashville's compare with those cities, sort of like a salary survey. When it comes to retention, what are the promotional opportunities? What are the transfer opportunities? Do officers have an opportunity to transfer into units where they have an interest? Or do we end up stagnated in precincts or in assignments? Because I think that can have a lot to do with retention. Are salaries and raises regular in the last 5 years? Is the council providing enough money to MNPD to give their officers raises on a regular basis, at least according to the cost of living? And then with promotion, I'd like to make sure that we have an objective promotional process, that it is not subjective in any way, that the evaluations and assessments done to put officers on a promotional list potentially is being done from outside the police department, so that subjectivity can be eliminated in that promotional process. I know that there are quite a number of other things on the list. I would also like to put on the list how investigations around sexual harassment or sexual assault within the police department are investigated. Is the police department taking a trauma-informed approach with potential victims of sexual assault within the police department? What is the process there? What does it look like? And is it victim-centered? And those are my sort of questions right off the bat. I'd also sort of like to see reports by PERF, which is the Police Executive Research Forum, the IACP, which is the International Association of the Chiefs of Police, and CALEA. We've heard Interim Chief Drake talk about MNPD's gold standard with CALEA, so I assume that they are CALEA compliant with regards to recruitment, retention, and promotion. But I'd also like to see what the latest academic research looks like and compare that to these reports that are coming out of police associations, so that we can sort of find the middle ground there between what law enforcement says about law enforcement and what academia says about law enforcement. I think that would give us a pretty good broad picture about recruitment, retention, and promotion. And then the last thing is the cultural competency. I guess I maybe differ a little bit from Reggie in that I don't think those are easy problems to solve. I think cultural competency is difficult. I think when you're asking the police department to police itself, and you're asking the people who potentially wrote the policies and enforce the policies to change the policies or find the limitations of those policies and practices, that becomes, I think, very difficult. And so I would love to see groups in Nashville, potentially nonprofit groups or community groups, work with the police department in order to evaluate cultural competency, do an assessment on cultural competency from the policy level, from the SOP level, because as we all know, there's what's on paper and then there's what's done. And so moving from policy into kind of what's done, maybe where we get to some places where we can make some really good changes. But identifying those community groups that could work with the police department to do that kind of assessment, I think would be very valuable. And with that, I'll check with Whitney and see if you have any further comments or ideas.
Thank you, Margie. I was curious if there's any data about the like rates of solving violent crimes, especially if there's anything related to like the tenure of the officers that or detectives that do that. But other than that, I think that is it for me.
This is Gary Moore. I've got a couple of questions.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Moore.
To follow up, actually, on the list of things that he's already got information on is just awesome, and it's a lot of what I was going to ask for. But one of the things he said was he was looking at the number of discipline, percentage of discipline within the police department. I would like him to break it down by race. and gender. In other words, are they being disciplined differently if they are a different race? And I think he said he's gathering the information of the percent of discipline within the police department, but I'd like to know the breakdown on the racial breakdown as well. And also, everybody knows we have a high turnover rate in the police department, but I'd like to know what our turnover rate is in comparison to other cities of comparable size. In other words, are we unique in our turnover problem that we have, or is that a standard nationwide? Is that all police departments having the same problem we're having? That's the question I'm asking. And that would mean you'd have to check on it on percentage-wise. What percentage of turnover do we have? And again, to follow up what someone said earlier, I think you need to look at the turnover rate broken down by race as well and gender. Somebody said we're training grounds, and I have to agree with that. I think Dimitri mentioned some kind of incentive if somebody stayed 5 years. Well, that's about what they stay, and we lose them anyway. And they get trained, and they go to another department for, it's not always better pay. I've got 2 police officer friends I know that have left, and it's not always better pay, but it's better work environment. So I can tell you that personally from an individual that lives close to me. He didn't leave for better pay. He went to a smaller department, but he went for a better work environment. He didn't go into details, but he said a better work environment. And for the record, I also had a black individual, police officer friend of mine that left the department. And I asked him, I said, why did you leave? He said 2 reasons. Number one is the management has their finger on you so tight that you cannot do anything without being second-guessed and or written up or punished in some way because of your actions. Number 2 is the majority of the police officers, he said himself and the majority of the other police officers are more afraid today of shooting somebody than they are of getting shot. That's kind of scared me to even think that. You know, they're trained to do certain things, but in the back of their mind, they got to think, I'm more afraid of shooting somebody than I am of getting shot. That's kind of a scary statement. And some of you guys that have served in law enforcement, maybe y'all can explain that better than I can. I just knew when he told me that, I mean, it really opened my eyes. I thought, what a terrible statement for me to have to hear. Anyway, I'll move on. Just clarifications on this. And by the way, somebody mentioned it, pay and benefits. That's always a reason for people to leave for better pay and better benefits. And another thing, too, having served as a firefighter, I can tell you one of the worst things for morale is to be promised something and not get it. And that has happened in not only police departments, but all Metro government employees over a period of time. They expect their step raises, but they get froze. They freeze their step raises. They promise a raise, but then the money's not there for the raise. So that's very discouraging to any employee, whether it's police department or any other employee of Metro. I'll shut up and leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Whitney.
Yes, one more thing. I was wondering if it would be possible if we could have someone maybe talk to us about the police budget. I know, like we've mentioned, some of the training things. Like, I'd be interested in how much is going into having sort of the consultants come in and do the cultural competency stuff. I'd just be interested in having someone sort of break down some of those things for us.
Great, thank you. Do we have any of the other committee members that would like to speak at this point?
Madam Chair, we have Clifton Harris's hand up.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just to piggyback on what Gary was saying, Mr. Moore was saying, not only looking at the cost of turnover, looking at the turnover rate, but also the cost of that turnover rate. That would be something that I think would be helpful. And then secondly, I've heard a lot of vernacular and terminologies that maybe some of us are not as seasoned in the police terminologies as others. It might be helpful if we had a running glossary of terms that we can use along with this committee. so that we can all be on the same page.
Very good. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I had an experience that I wish everybody on the committee would have had at one time or other. I had 2 ride-alongs with the police at night, and you talk about an education as to what they encounter. It is unbelievable, and it would be really great if each committee member could have that opportunity in the next month. I don't know if that's doable or not, but I certainly had a tremendous improvement in my appreciation for all that the police face after doing those 2 ride-alongs.
That's a great suggestion. Eric, what's the best way to for a committee member to request a ride along with MNPD?
I will make sure to get back with that. I will have that information. If anything, what I'll do is we'll probably just take a lineup, take names of those who are interested, and I will make sure to get back with everybody with that.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Gary Moore. If I may follow up with that, the police department also has I think they call it train the trainer, in where they allow civilians to come down to their training academy and see what it's like to be trained as a police officer. That would be quite expensive, I think, but it's something that an individual could do on their own, whether they try to do it as a group, but individuals could possibly do that. Again, somebody from out of the mayor's office would have to set that up, but I think that's something that would be an eye-opener to most of us to see that.
I agree. I think that's always a great experience. If you've never sat under the lights, as we say in law enforcement, it can be a very eye-opening experience. So I encourage any of you that would like to do it to please let us know and make the time to go do that. I would like to put 2 additional potential subject matter experts on the list. I'd love to hear from Valerie Meese, retired from Metro PD, and potentially Judy Balcom. I would love to hear what they have to say about the promotional opportunities for women in MMPD. Does anybody else have any further business or anything they'd like to bring up? I think we've kind of gone through the agenda for this particular meeting. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add before we adjourn?
Let me say one. I think that one of the questions that came up was how do you communicate with each other? And I think that's a question that's going to come up in the other 2 committees. And we should be able to provide you with a consistent answer, and we'll get on that immediately. I mean, I think at the very least, if you are emailing information to other people on the committee, you should probably email the same information to everyone, that everybody should have the same access to information. But we can give you a more detailed answer to that fairly quickly, I believe.
Great, thank you, Mayor.
Margie, a question of Carl while he's here.
Yes.
Hi, Carl, David Fox. One thing I've wondered about, it seems like our community has gotten sensitive and good at holding the police chief accountable for the results of the police department. It's always seemed like the mayor, people don't look to the mayor, even though the mayor does the hiring. Can you just briefly share your feelings, like when you were in office, did you feel like a visceral responsibility, or did you feel like there was kind of a bit of a large buffer between you and, say, the police chief in terms of how the public saw who was ultimately responsible for how the police department performed?
No, I felt that there was always responsibility on the mayor. And I mean, just to talk about it in the political sense, I mean, I think when you run for that office or you hold that office, you talk about public safety and the department frequently. I mean, you know, if I'd say there's 3 things that you talk about all the time and that people look to in terms of judging how the city is going, would be education, public safety, and economic opportunity. I mean, those are the 3. And I'd probably adding quality of life is sort of a general concern, but it's always there. It's something that you think about all the time.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question as it related to the communication amongst the board members. If we could get some clarification from Metro Legal, will these communications be part of a public record, or will they be held as work product amongst us?
That's a good question, and I think I don't play a lawyer anymore, and I'll just say we'll give you an answer in terms of how those emails would be handled from the law department.
That would be important for me, particularly because I'm communicating primarily from my company email. So if they're going to be part or a fabric of a public record, it would be good if the IT department would temporarily assign all of us working committee emails, because I would not want to impugn my private emails and the rights related to that with these types of communications. So as you're going through it, will you look at that as well?
Yes, that's a.
Daryl, that has been something that we have discussed and talked about, so I will get you more information on that.
Thank you, Eric.
And then I would just say, if we're going to do a group email, if we could just put in the subject line what committee the documents are for. I know that we want all information going to all committees, but I suspect that we're about to be inundated with documents, and if we have the ability to sort those by committee, I think that would be very helpful. Anybody else have anything they would like to add before we adjourn? Whitney, do you have anything further? Okay, great. And we are not meeting, are we meeting or not meeting on Labor Day?
We are not meeting on Labor Day, but just to confirm, I will make sure, but from what I know, we're not meeting on Labor Day.
It looked like we were skipping a Monday and then going to the next Monday. So if we were able to get some documents back, that should give us a pretty good long time to review those documents, graphs, charts, or whatever is returned to us.
Madam Chair, I was just looking at the notice we got, and it said that we're going to meet on the 10th of September. Is what this says.
You're right, it does say that. Are we meeting that week?
That is a, what is that, a Thursday or Friday?
A Thursday.
Thursday.
So Eric, can you just get us some clarification on when our next meeting is?
Absolutely will.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. Ponder. Whitney, anything further?
No, thank you, Margie. Good.
Dana, did you have something?
Yeah, I had a question. So the oversight board, I think on our next meeting, I don't know. I mean, when will we be hearing from them, and have they done work on recruitment, retention, and workforce development? Have they looked into it? I want to know what they've come up with and what they've seen.
So invite them as subject matter expert?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Especially when it comes to the cultural competency areas and stuff and all that you were citing earlier. I'd like to know their thoughts on looking at the cultural accountability.
And one other thing just hit me, because with the cadet training that we do it through the Metro Human Relations, and they collect data on that. And what kind of data do they have in terms of how effective the trainings are? Because we're going to look at to expand the training, possibly. I want to know what the effectiveness of their trainings are.
Great, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Great. Seeing nothing further, Mr. Mayor, have you got anything else you would like to add?
I just mentioned this. I think one of the things that I always got a lot out of in terms of looking at best practices or other ideas is looking at other cities. And I know I know there are former police chiefs and police experts out there. I spoke to a former chief from Chattanooga, a guy named Fred Fletcher, who has some experience in some of the areas that you're all interested in. But I would encourage us to think along lines of maybe identifying cities or police departments that do things especially strong. And I think the staff can help us find those folks and seeing if we can hear from them. I mean, there may be issues about getting them to agree to it, but I think most people are willing to help. And I would encourage us to look at departments that are doing something really, really good, particularly in the area that this committee is assigned to, and find out how they did it and what they've learned from their experiences. That I think is a good approach, at least in my experience.
Agreed. Thank you. Eric, anything else from you from the mayor's side?
That is it from me. The only thing is that you will be getting some information soon. And specifically, I know it was brought up, I think, by you, Whitney, or Madam Vice Chair, about use of force policies and the manual. So you will be getting some, hopefully, by the end of this week around that. And a lot of the information that was already discussed kind of in this meeting anyway should be a part of that packet as well. So look forward to hearing more about that as well.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. I think we've made it through the agenda, and I appreciate everybody's contribution. I think this is going to be a great committee. I feel like we're well on our way to doing some great work. So I appreciate everybody's attention and contribution and time this evening. So seeing no further business, then the meeting is adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.